Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Ready Yet, the podcast that's all about who it is you need to be in order to succeed. I am so freaking excited today to welcome Robb Zbierski, right? Did I do that right?
Nailed it.
Awesome. So here's the deal. I met Robb at a Women's Council of Realtors meeting. Very well could be my first introduction to the coaching world, because I have a corporate background. So I didn't know what this coaching thing was, life coaching, business coaching. I had no idea. All I knew was I was miserable. All I knew is I was busting my ass, getting okay results, and hating every minute of it, because I had absolutely lost any attachment to why I was even doing this in the first place.
Yeah, you weren't pissed. But
that's because I didn't tell you that. I do piss pretty well.
You were ready to climb. We'll put it that way.
And so why don't you give people a more official introduction to who you are and what you do?
No, man, I'm going to leave it at that. That was good stuff. That's better than most of the intros I get when I'm on stage.
Right.
I'm Robb Zbierski. I'm a partner at Freedom Personal Development. We're an international training organization. We specialize in personal and professional development training. So typically what that looks like, here's the hows and the whats of what it is. And people, I've been struggling with, I don't struggle with this, and I've tried different lines. Like, what do you do? Like, I help people kick more ass. Like, people are like, are you a boxer? I'm like, no, I don't. No. It didn't work. Right now I help insurance agents build thriving agencies that operate whether they're in the walls or not. But basically, I help people become a better version of themselves, right? So we do that through skills-based training, which is things like memory training and speed reading and, like a time management courses. And then we also do mindset training, which is things like attitude and opening to abundance, anatomy of results. And we've got this Train Your Brain for Success program that has now kind of spun off a Master Your Mind program that I'm working on based on shameless self-promotion book I wrote with my best friend and business partner, Roger Sipe. So I used to be able to tell people that I flew around the country teaching people how to be a better version of themselves. Now I give them a link to do that.
Right now we do the same thing from my basement, right?
Yeah, totally. So I didn't realize. So what's funny is I knowing what I think we want to talk about on this episode or on this interview or podcast. What do you want to call it? Whatever it's.
I call it a podcast when I remember. Sometimes.
Our sesh. I recall now you telling me where you are at, and then you talk about like, who do you need to be to get to where you want to go? And I don't like, this will be fun now that the bills are all paid off. Like, you came up to me at that program. You're like, do you do coaching? And this is one of the things I've always talked about. To be successful, you got to have like a certain level of opportunistic qualities in you.
Yes, I do.
I was not coaching, and you're like, do you do coaching? I'm like, you bet I do. Absolutely. I do some great coaching.
Well, but here's the thing. So learning.
Listen, I wasn't lying to you.
No, teaching point. You were doing it in large groups.
Totally.
And then there was an opportunity to do it with an individual.
Yeah. Who was very clear in what they wanted and was asking me specific questions related to what I do and being observant and not mansplaining what I do to people. and just being open to conversation. I'm like, I can help this lady.
Right.
And,
well, and so many of my clients
vibing, and like, you meet people, you're vibing with them off that. I'm like,
right.
oh, this is going to be awesome.
And so many of my clients, and I'm sure you see this also, they paint themselves into a little corner with whatever offer they think they want to sell, having never vetted the offer with other human beings, having never spoken to anybody about what they actually need. And then they get pissed when nobody buys it. Well,
you're right, mine.
So, all right. So here's the deal. Since we're having a different conversation than we used to have, I mean, we've always kept in touch, but Facebook is one of those things that makes you feel like you really are talking to somebody, but you're not really. So I don't know that I know your story about, I know you were doing something so randomly completely different.
Yeah, you could say that.
I don't remember what it was, and I want to say there was a bicycle involved.
There were many.
So, okay. So how did you
Aaron, there was a lot, I won't lie to you, there was a lot of Lycra in my...
There's a lot of Lycra. So under the subject matter of taking advantage of opportunities and following your instincts when a door is opening.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine there was some of that. Tell me about, remind me.
Yeah.
How you did that.
It's amazing. So for those of you watching and listening, you're going to think this was completely created and made up, because it's like, oh, perfect microcosm for what we're talking about. So this would have been, I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary with Freedom Personal Development. And so 11 years ago, I was living in Madison, Wisconsin. I was working in I used to work in the bicycle industry. So I worked for the company. I honestly don't even know what they're called now. They've changed their name a couple times, but basically I was in Schwinn, GT, and Mongoose bikes. So anybody our age or older or younger knows Schwinn and GT and Mongoose. Like, I was the global marketing manager for Mongoose bikes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
GT Schwinn. And the company had gotten, my position had gotten relocated to Bethel, Connecticut. And so my wife was 6 months pregnant with the twins. And we went out there and did, and I was like, I had worked really hard to get to where I was in the bike industry. Like, it was always like a super passion pursuit thing. And like, I had done the whole work at a bike shop thing, and I had done the whole work and advocacy thing. And like in Chicago, everybody knows the Bike the Drive, which is where they shut down Lakeshore Drive. Yeah. I was on the team that coordinated the first ever Bike the Drive.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Like, I got some really fun stories about that. Anyway, so I kind of worked my way up to a pretty decent position. And then they're like, your job is now going to be in Connecticut. And so we went and did the dog and pony show, right? And like, we went out there and checked it all out, and we came back, and my wife was like, we can go. But like, before we make that decision, do you want to get divorced now? Or
Connecticut's got to be a different world.
Well, there was a lot. I mean, it was gorgeous out there. It was expensive. And like, we would have had no, we were going to have newborn twins, and we had no safety, we had no support system out there. So, well, anyway, they're like, you can have a relocation package or a severance package. I chose B. Wow. Fortunately, had some really great mentors in my life at that point who kind of like encouraged me to do some negotiation. All this to say, so then like 5 years prior to this, I had met one of the owners of Freedom Personal Development at one of those murder mystery dinner parties. Like, the ones where you...
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. I was going to ask you, you took severance. Did you have any idea if there was a plan?
No plan.
No plan. Great. Good job.
So I shouldn't say that. A buddy of mine and I had a startup business that never started up. We had a consulting business in the bicycle industry that just wasn't... Honestly, I think it was like 5 years ahead of its time. But anyway, no real backup plan. Like,
twins on the way.
What's that?
Twins on the way.
Twins on the way. Wife was very pregnant. Like, we'll leave it at that. So
we'll appreciate that.
Anyway, this guy, Eric was the name. He and I just had kind of kept in touch over the years. And so I'm out mowing the lawn, and my neighbor drives by. He's like, "Hey man, you looking for a job, right?" I'm like, "I sure am." He's like, "You remember these guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, they're hiring, and I think you'd be really good. I'm like, what do they do? He's like, I don't know, man, but like Roger lives down the street, right? So Roger was the other founder, my business partner. So call him, talk to Eric, and he kind of is like, I'm like, what do you guys do? I'm like, I know you're professional speakers. What do you do? And so he kind of gave me the gist, and through course conversation, turns out like Eric lived here, Roger lived here, I lived right here.
Oh
like
my gosh.
all lived on the same street in the same neighborhood, right? Unbeknownst to each other. Like Eric and Roger knew they knew where each other lived, but nobody knew that I lived right between them. So right around this time, we'd had this like trust me, it adds to the story. It seems ridiculous. This like is totally talk about like be yourself and be genuine and how it leads to good things, right? So we had this neighborhood softball tournament, and I registered late for this. I couldn't be on the team, so I decided to be all-time first base coach.
There you go.
4th of July every year. Short version is what you're staring at spent the whole day topless drinking beers at first base, just telling the kid couldn't run. Roger was in the game, and he'll tell this story. If anybody gets a chance to ask him, be like, hey, when did you meet Rob? He's like, I met Rob at a neighborhood softball game. And within 10 minutes of seeing this guy, I said, I don't know who that is, but I want to work with that guy.
Isn't it amazing how you just know?
And literally like a couple months later, I'm sitting in Roger's office. He's giving me the nuts and bolts on how to do what I do. And 10 years later, partnered at the company, and just trying to share some goodness and getting to have fun conversations like this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, and so like just to hit home the teaching points of being open to opportunity, to following your instincts because there's a reason you're thinking it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a skill to learn how to listen to those instincts.
Yeah. And yes, it's a skill. You can do it before that though. I'm not trying, like, this is an argument. I'm supporting what you're going to say here. It's a skill to acknowledge when you're getting in your own way.
Yeah. That's the flip side of it. Absolutely.
It's one thing to go, hey, I should be open to opportunity and genuine and it's another thing to be able to go, dude, knock it off, or lady, you're being a little crazy right now. Play the what if game. That was where because all right, so I get into this job, I get into this role, and I was fortunate because of what we talked about, opportunistic, didn't know any better.
Never underestimate the power of not realizing something shouldn't work.
Yeah, like, what did I call it? I was like too stupid to know otherwise. I don't know.
Right.
Like
I've gotten some of my biggest deals in my corporate life because I didn't know it shouldn't have worked.
So we've talked about this. I remember having this conversation back in the day. Well, this is like back in the day when I started off. If you were walking out of a room, we kind of gauged your results and how well you were going to do. You followed the numbers, right?
Right.
So the numbers said if you were coming out with about $1,000 or $1,500 at the end of a speech, you put together a couple of those speeches a month, you're gonna have a pretty good career. So my second speech, I walked out with $34,000 because they're like, do you do coaching? Absolutely. So they're like, hey, can you come do this? And I'm like, yeah, we'll totally do that. It's not how it works. But anyway, but it's still like I'm in this new job, and like I was smart enough to know that I wasn't smart, right? You know what I mean? I was smart enough to know there's other people I could learn from. And so what really like kind of that whole like the catalyst, the turning point, there's probably some like ridiculously sexy word I can't come up with right now, where I remember sitting, we had an event, and it was like my first time meeting everybody else in the company, and everyone's talking about, I'd always fought personal development. Like we teach personal development.
You're in corporate, because I had that same problem. I was in corporate, and it's like, I was in sales and marketing in my corporate position. And when you needed more information, you went and got a certification or a master's degree or, more education. There wasn't really.
You didn't go learn how to read faster.
Right.
You didn't go learn how to remember people's names. You went and got a certificate.
Right.
Yeah. So I remember sitting in this room, and I'm sitting with some people who have arguably proven themselves from a results standpoint, And I'm like, all right. for years, people have been telling me, you're going to do great things. You're going to do great things. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I'm doing great things. I was not doing great. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Let's give this a shot. And then when I was finally open to embracing the idea of, hey, dude, yes, I refer to myself as dude, apparently. Hey, man,
It's an
like,
age thing.
there's more out there for you. Like, you're not going to figure it out on your own. Go get some help. That's when it really, things accelerated quickly after that.
It's the whole, even the phone like that.
Tell us.
It is finding the people who can help you along the path. Why does everything have to be a struggle?
Well, and this is like, I'm borderline line stealing from a friend of mine, Kirk Barron, who says, like, human beings by design can't figure it out on our own. We need help.
Right.
And I mean, you and I have had this conversation, you know this, and I'm sure the people watching and listening have heard this. And you know what? If you've heard it, awesome. If hearing it from my voice makes it stick, even better. Like, a common denominator of unsuccessful people is a go-it-alone mentality.
Right.
A common denominator.
Or the taking the hard way. I still remember having, one of the coaches I've heard, and she wasn't the only person to say that, how you do something is how you do everything. Like, what's your approach? And I still remember a friend of mine who needed a new toilet seat. I mean, simple, stupid little thing. And he was bound and determined to find the bolt to fix, we're talking about 3 trips to Home Depot later. He's telling me this and thinking about this grand accomplishment. And I'm thinking, you're nuts.
I could replace that entire toilet in a half a beer.
Right. With someone, the right investment, instead of being lack mentality, someone who knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And you watch people repeatedly take the hardest route possible.
So I have a name for this.
Okay.
And man, if it's called hard working farmer syndrome.
Sure.
and I say this with a giant heart, a huge smile, and an insane amount of gratitude for my upbringing, because I was raised in a farming family. But I've had this conversation with clients over the years and it's really like, if you're listening to this and you live in the Midwest, just know you're prone to this.
It's brutal to try to break.
Not so much, right?
Yes.
Rocky Mountains sometimes, but like, you're in the Midwest, oh man.
If it's not a struggle, then it wasn't worth it.
Totally. Like, you got to do the hard way because that's the way we do it.
Because that's the way
ownership and pride to get it done. And I'm like, I've had this conversation. I had a coaching client. I've been working with this guy for like 3-4 years, and this was like a major like hurdle for him. He had the guilt. Like, his office manager would give him a hard time for leaving early. He'd hit all his goals. He'd accomplished what he wanted to do, but he's leaving at 4, and she's giving him a hard time. And I'm like, who signs her check? I do. Why? Well, I got like this. I feel like I should be doing it. I'm like, stop shooting all over yourself.
And I had that problem in one of my corporate jobs because at the time I was competitive powerlifter. So I was in the gym. I mean, there was another thing that I was doing, and I would leave in order to get to the gym on time for who I was training with. And the job that I had was in commercial real estate, where it's all a dog and pony show. It's all about who's there and what do you look like and how much do you look like you're doing? Yeah. And people would get mad at me that I would leave. And I'd say, listen, it's not my fault. I can do in 4 hours what takes you 10.
Yeah.
You're playing fantasy football and not working. I'm getting my stuff done and going to do what's important to me. And
yeah. You don't have hard work. And like, I hear you. I see how it's like, you waste so much mental bandwidth on the stress and struggle of what should I be doing, or should I be doing, or should I have done it hard? You feel like they feel guilty because they got it done easy.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at Erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
So what is something that you've overcome that you feel the most proud of?
Something, man, I got something I'm overcome that I'm most proud of. I'm like, oh, I overcame, you know what? I overcame MAS. I'm not perfect, but I've definitely made strides in my self-diagnosis of MAS. For those of you who aren't familiar, MAS is male answer syndrome, also known as mansplaining. There's FAS, for the record. FAS exists as well. But man, I used to have the answer to every question that didn't get asked. And for some reason felt the need to just share that with anyone with 2 ears. And
an insecurity.
What's that?
It's usually from an insecurity.
Oh, so yeah, it's always from like insecurity, lack of clarity. Like, yeah, lots of reasons for it. But I think I would probably, and this is, forget it, you asked me to toot my horn, I'm gonna toot my horn. And again, it's a work in progress, right? But like my ability to acknowledge and recognize when I'm doing things that are unproductive from a MAS, FAS standpoint, like just shutting up and listening and not feeling like I need to chime in, listening to listen, not listening to respond, or listening to listen to respond.
Well, and I think one of the skills that describes, and one of the things that I have found the most useful, and you said it's hard to kind of clean up your own mess because we're so mired in it, but I try my best to be an observer of my behavior.
Mm-hmm. Self-awareness is a big, important trait. Not to get all Gary V on you, but self-awareness is the key here.
I say all the time, I'm nothing if not self-aware. I could tell you all sorts of things that I screw up all the time.
Oh yeah, and then like self-awareness, self-deprecation are
right.
very similar, but two very different things. No, yeah, it's a fine line between self-deprecation and self-abuse.
Right, exactly.
But what's funny is, and in the world that I play in, there's a fine line between self-deprecation and self-abuse, and how you consistently choose to talk to yourself actually determines what side of the line you end up living on.
Right.
You end up unconsciously pre-programming yourself for failure and for lack of confidence and for lack of results and like that's that's what it's all about, pre-programming your brain and overcoming the hardwiring that's in there.
And it's the difference between catching myself doing the thing, whatever the thing is that stops me, and just going, doing the thing, there I am doing the thing, stop doing the thing, and moving on, or getting stuck in, I suck, see, I'm doing it again. Two different outcomes.
So yeah, like I integrated something into my personal mental routine, not PG or PG-13, but I don't know.
I do. It's me talking to people. I definitely label this adult content because there's no way my
this is like when you go to upload this to YouTube. Is it made for kids? No, it's not. So what? You learn to call it compartmentalization, whatever, but you take those thoughts that aren't serving you, and I've got a mental depository for those, and I call it the bucket, and the name of my bucket rhymes with bucket.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's just stuff that you got to just think the line is sometimes you got to chuck it in the fucking bucket. And that's my apologies. And then not, because if it hits home with you, use it. If it doesn't hit home with you, rename it.
Right. I think that's awesome.
Having a bucket is life-changing. In that spiraling vortex of death.
And it does allow you to be an observer of your behavior instead of and respond to it instead of react to it. Yeah. I don't know that we can come up with better advice in this conversation than to give people that idea of creating a chuck it bucket in their own mind.
It's just a version of being kind to yourself. That's, at the end of the day, these are my 4 favorite words in personal development. be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, here's the deal. If people want to continue this conversation with you, find out how else you can help them the way that you helped me, how would they go about doing that?
Oh my God. Well, do not come ringing my doorbell. I get the video doorbell. I'll see who it is. Yeah. If you go to freedompersonaldevelopment.com, that's probably the best way. That information on me and us and our programming and what we do for people is all there. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's Robb Zbierski. I'm hoping the links are going to be in there because my last name.
They will all be in there.
Some days I don't like spelling my last name, but it's not that bad. But if you search for Robb Z Speaker on Twitter or Instagram, that's a fun way to find me.
And Rob has 2 B's.
ROBBZ, yes, Robb Z Speaker. Thank you. But yeah, head over to Freedom Personal Development. That's always the first place to go. How shamelessly self-promoting do you want me to get here?
Whatever you would like to tell people is always helpful.
Yeah, like if you want to help get my ego restored, you can go buy my book on Amazon because it's like at an ego-crushingly low price right now. Apparently, they have plenty of.
Right, they have the inventory. They put it out there.
Apparently, Amazon has plenty of inventory. But here, I wrote a book called Master Your Mind. Counterintuitive strategies to refocus and re-energize your runaway brain. So if you've ever had horrible days, I know a guy that can help.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, check that out. And then follow me on Facebook. We got YouTube. I got the YouTubes. I got the Facebook. I got the.
You're not hiding.
I got the Twitters. I'm in the Googles.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.